Where was the old Captain America during the entire MCU? At the end of Endgame, when Steve Rogers has to return the Infinity Stones, he knows he isn't coming right back. We can see it on his face, and Bucky knows it too when he says his final goodbye. A few seconds later, we see him again, much older. Our Captain America took his chance to fulfill his promise to Peggy Carter for that one last dance, even if it risked messing with the entire timeline. But that creates a huge question. How could two versions of Captain America exist in the same universe without creating a Nexus event? The answer is actually hidden in the Loki series. When Loki meets his other variants in the Void, classic Loki explains how he escaped the TVA for years. He was living completely alone on an isolated planet. It was only when he decided to leave that planet to see his brother that he created a new branch and was caught. This explanation suggests that Steve Rogers had to live in hiding for over 75 years. He had to be a silent witness to some of the worst events in history and even watch the Avengers make mistakes, all without being able to interfere. He couldn't make any waves. He had to live like a shadow. But despite all that, he lived a very happy life with Peggy. And there are clues hidden throughout the movies. In Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Peggy tells Steve that Captain America saved the man who would later become her husband. This seems like a subtle nod to the fact that the Steve from the future came back for her. We also see in the Ant-Man flashback to the 1980s that Peggy is clearly wearing a wedding ring. So we know for a fact that she was married, but it gets even more interesting. In Endgame, we see that Peggy keeps a picture of young Steve on her desk at the S.H.I.E.L.D. base. Isn't that a little strange for a married woman? Unless, of course, her husband is Steve Rogers. And finally, back in that hospital scene, as Peggy is on her deathbed, we see photos of her children by her side. But there are no pictures of her husband. Why? It's not so strange when you realize the truth. No one could ever know that Steve Rogers was and always had been her husband, lost in time. Old Steve could only step out of the shadows at the very moment his younger self traveled back into the past. From that point on, he was the only Steve Rogers in his timeline, and he no longer risked creating a new branch. So, are you convinced?